What is unique about the experience of homelessness for women?
So, women experiencing homelessness have unique causes and also unique conditions and consequences of being on the streets, of experiencing core housing need, of experiencing homelessness. So, one of the things that we know, and this is consistent in research across the country and around the world, is that women are a lot more likely to rely on friends or informal supports to exhaust all of those supports before they end up on the streets. So they're much more likely to couch surf, to trade sex for housing, in order to avoid being on the streets, in part because of exposure to violence and exploitation that women disproportionately experience on the streets, but also because of exclusion in the shelter system. So, for example, the most recent data we have at this time, 2021, shows that if you look at the shelter system and how we're investing in it, only 13% of our investment is targeted to women-specific shelters and beds. 68% is dedicated to men and co-ed shelters. So that's people of all genders. And many women will avoid co-ed shelters because of experiences of harassment or violence within those. So we have a huge inequity with respect to how we fund homelessness across this country. And so women are more likely to remain in what we call hidden homelessness, in situations of couch surfing or in core housing need or in abusive relationships. So this is a key piece for understanding women's homelessness. And what's unfortunate about this is that invisibility means that it's less visible to policymakers and politicians in terms of thinking about how we address homelessness. And so there is kind of a deprioritization around women's homelessness because that visibility isn't there, and we've built a more male-centric homelessness system. So this is a key piece. Certainly a second key piece is the presence of violence in the lives of women, girls, and gender diverse folks. This is a group that experiences more violence before becoming homeless, more violence once on the street, more violence in the shelter system, more violence once they've transitioned out of homelessness. All of those experiences create obviously tremendous harm, challenges for financial security, for income, for mental health and wellness, for social inclusion. And so the kind of responses we have around women's homelessness really need to be proportionate to the level of violence that this group is experiencing. The third piece to know about women's homelessness is that women are often more likely to be in the caregiver role for children and for other family members. So there is an increased economic burden on them. That's in part why when we look at data across Canada, we see women in greater core housing need, often because they are either the sole or primary income generator if they're a sole parent, and they're more likely to be caring for children. And that increased core housing need combined with inequities around pay on the basis of gender means that this is a group that's more likely to be in poverty and therefore more likely to be at risk of homelessness. And in what we have seen, and it's really very disturbing, is report after report has shown that women are often separated or continue to be separated from their children on the basis of poverty, particularly racialized women and Indigenous women. And once that happens, for folks who, for example, are in social housing, they may lose their housing because they no longer qualify for the extra bedroom that was for their child. So they may be evicted from that housing, and then the only housing they can get is for themselves as a single person, financially and also within social housing. And so reuniting with their child becomes really, really difficult because the child welfare system won't enable women to reunite unless there is sufficient space for that child. So the kind of there's a range of systems, the child welfare system, the housing system, the homelessness system, operating in ways that create challenges for women to remain with their children when they're experiencing housing precarity or homelessness, and then also to reunite. So this is a huge feature of what housing precarity and homelessness looks like for women. Fourth, I mean, there are very unique health circumstances for women, gender diverse, and trans folks. So whether that's related to pregnancy, whether that's related to menstruation, for example, period poverty is something I haven't seen a tremendous amount of policy action on in Canada. There's many shelter spaces that are not, don't enable women to access the kind of unique health needs that they have around pregnancy or sexual health. And that experience, while lacking housing, is enormously challenging. So it's the kind of combination of these factors that make housing precarity and homelessness quite unique for women.